So we all know that pesticides can have an effect on human health and on environmental health. And we picked a couple of chronic human health effects we actually looked at in the report, but I only want to show you here in the presentation three very common chronic human health effects. The one is carcinogenicity. Let me just remove the pictures here, sorry. So pesticides can have carcinogenic properties, and that means they damage the genome or disrupting cellular metabolic processes. Then pesticides could also have an impact on your neural system or nervous system, and it can affect the structure and the function. In that case, pesticides are neurotoxic. And very often pesticides can have an effect on the reproduction. So that means they have adversely effects on the sexual function and the fertility in adults, but also on the development in babies and children. So we were interested now in these three chronic health effects, and of these 1,004 products we identified being registered, we now looked at the possible or proven effect of these pesticides on these three chronic human health effects. So on the left-hand side here with the DNA, you see the carcinogenicity. Then below that is the neurotoxicity. And on the right-hand side, you see the effect on reproduction and development toxicity. In gray, that means there are no data. And sorry, I forgot to mention, we looked at these data according to a database from the EU. So this pesticide has never been registered anywhere else, or there has been no data on carcinogenicity, neurotoxicity, and reproduction toxicity. So this is the gray part in our little pie charts in these three. The green one says it's proven that there's no effect on cancer. So in terms of all the 1,004 products registered in Nigeria, almost half of them are proven to not show any carcinogenic activities. Nevertheless, you see the orange cycle means there are possible effects. So we need more proof to either distinguish if there's no effect or a proven effect. And the red one says it's absolutely proven that there is an effect on cancer. And that means for the case of Nigerian registered pesticides, these are 26 products being registered in Nigeria having proven carcinogenic activities, which, for example, includes active ingredients like chlorothalonil, oxyfluorphane, and permethrin. In terms of neurotoxicity, it looks even worse. You can see the red cycle here, the red piece or in this chart is even bigger. So we have 244 products which are proven to be neurotoxic. These are, for example, chlorpyrifos, bifenthrin, and dichlorphos. And similar to reproduction and development toxicity, proven 262 products, including carbofuran, dimethoate, and carbendazim. In terms of environmental health effects, there can be so many effects, effects on soil quality, birds, wildlife, etc. So we picked only two of them, which is the effect on bees, or in general pollinators, and the effect on the bottom here. You can see the warning symbol. You can see it most of the time on labels of pesticide products, which means toxic to aquatic systems. And we found that 40% of all products being registered in Nigeria are toxic or very toxic to bees. And even 47%, so almost half of all the products are very toxic or toxic to fish, including, for example, bifenthrin. And there are many studies out there looking at quite high concentrations in water and soil already in Nigeria. And this is quite worrying because we assuming that not every farmer knows about these type of effects. And if we look at the human health effects, we see quite often that farmers don't wear the protection gear. They spraying with bare hands or no shoes, etc., etc. I think we all know about that. But also farmers don't know about the toxicity towards bees and aquatic systems. And I think that is quite tricky if farmers regularly using these pesticides, but don't know how they can actually prevent the effect on the biodiversity. So remember, 1,004 products have been registered in Nigeria, and we found that actually 402 products, which is the red part in this chart, are not approved in Europe anymore. So they have been approved, but they have been withdrawn, sometimes due to their human health effects, environmental effects, persistence, etc. So that is quite a lot. That's almost half of the pesticides registered are not approved in Europe anymore. And that's equal to 57 active ingredients. Most of the policies who are in place or who have been in place emphasizing very much the support for inputs for crop production based on conventional agriculture. So the agriculture promotion policy, for example, recognizes the possible effects of pesticides on human health, but not necessarily the effects on the environment when soil and water are contaminated. And this is quite surprising because we read quite often that policy makers are very much aware of a decrease in biodiversity, land degradation, increase in land degradation, and increase in pollution. And the pest management strategy in this agriculture promotion policy seems to promote only the safe use of pesticides rather than using fewer pesticides. Another one is the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan under the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, and that recognizes actually the land degradation and the pressing pollutions as pressing environmental concerns. But no sustainable agricultural techniques are promoted in this plan. And it's rather the opposite. Within this Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, the Growth Enhancement Support Scheme, which we believe is not in place anymore, but it was in place, clearly promoted high input agriculture that depends on pesticide use. And they were even subsidizing pesticides which are very toxic and which are not registered in Europe anymore. The Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan, as a response to COVID-19, aims to support smallholder farmers directly or through outgrower schemes with services and inputs, including land clearing, plowing, seeds, etc., but also pesticides. And it also provides low interest for input financing. It's not clear to us if pesticides are included. Moving to the gaps, we identified definitely a data gap. But this is not necessarily only in Nigeria. To be fair, that's a problem in whole Africa and even worldwide, that we have insufficient data on import and the use of pesticides. There is also a lack of environmental monitoring programs. We don't know if the soil, water is contaminated with pesticides on a regular basis, because it seems that there is no pesticide analysis regularly going on in environmental systems. And we also don't know the impact on biodiversity, although we know many pesticides are used who have quite an impact on bees and aquatic systems. And it seems to us that there is not really a lot or enough interaction and collaboration going on between these agencies to really ensure a functioning pesticide registration, regulation, and enforcement system. One very important other gap in the regulation and registration we identified is the national adaptation of the pesticide registration. So the risk-based evaluation of pesticides is not adapted to Nigerian conditions. So pesticides are very often just registered without adapting the international test results one receives in the dossier to local conditions, such as local species, local climate, local diet, and very important, to the mitigation measures. And just a couple of words to mitigation measures. Many pesticides, for example, in Europe, are registered for use only if certain mitigation measures are in place to protect the environment and the human health. So only if one actually implements these mitigation measures, one is allowed to use this pesticide. For example, a buffer zone to rivers, for example, for bifenthrin, or the timing and location of spraying to protect bees, or the use of protection to protect the spray operator and the farmer, or the pre-harvest interval to protect operators and consumers to reduce the food residues. Very often, these mitigation measures are not known by the farmer and often unrealistic under Nigerian conditions. We also identified that there is quite an intransparent process. We don't know which data are considered in the registration and how the decision about the registration is being made. And the last one is the re-evaluation. There are so many new data on the effects of pesticides and also possibilities for better alternatives that there needs to be a system in place for regular re-registration of pesticides. Now, I think we see quite a bit of potential for the upcoming national pesticide policy. If it's done very well, it could combine all the different fragmented responsibilities, policies, and guidelines. And through that, it could enable a really good functioning pesticide management system. It could also ensure a protective and scientifically sound and locally adapted registration procedure, adapted to Nigerian situations. And it could embed a clear goal to reduce the reliance on pesticides, specifically on the toxic pesticides and specifically also on the pesticides who are withdrawn in Europe, because this is quite a barrier for export. If they are withdrawn in Europe, the MRLs are very low. So it's very hard for someone who is still using these pesticides to export to the European countries. And also it could be collaborating for the effective development of alternatives to be used in the integrated pest management plan. The last slide, strategies and policies promoting sustainable agriculture, definitely step by step, the integrated pest management plan, which should focus on the reduction in the use of toxic pesticides. And the pest control should include mechanical, cultural, and biological strategies. And only as a last result, if all the other three are failing, pesticide use should be recommended. The second step is then to move towards organic farming. And I think we all know what that entails. But one could even go one step further to go towards agroecology, which combines not only the local, but the new scientific, technological, innovative knowledge and applies the ecological and social approaches to agriculture systems. So that farming is not only providing food, but also providing safe food, cultural and social and environmental benefits. So I thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to questions and interaction.